Hi Nat, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Very good. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thanks for talking to us. Um,
No problem.
you're the founder of IAMSOUND Academy, right?
I am, yes.
What could you tell us exactly what IAMSOUND Academy
Mhm.
is?
So, I Am Sound Academy is actually technically a radio station.
Hmm.
Um, it's wellness and dance music kind of combined. It's my love of everything, kind of personal development, spirituality, all that kind of stuff, mixed in with the best DJs you can find on the planet. With my Ibiza side, and I lived out there. Very got good connections out there, and I put together I Am Sound. It was meant to be a personal development platform in the beginning without the radio station, and then COVID hit, and it kind of veered off to a station. But we are now producing content all based around living the best life you can, and basically really pushing forward with the personal work this year. As we know, the world's a bit messy right now. The only thing we have the control over is our own lives, so we start there. And we just kind of an example of the content we do. We have an entire mental health campaign for January, so we've got a show every single day in January from the 4th until the 5th of February, I think. And we're doing kind of a podcast every evening based on the most awkward stuff that you could possibly imagine. So it's a series called the TALKWARDS. They're awkward talks about things that matter. So there's like porn, sex, drugs, relationships, vulnerabilities, all that kind of stuff
Hmm.
is where we like to dive into.
What led you to doing a show like that talks about
Life.
such yeah.
Yeah, life. The most growth comes from where it's most difficult. And like I was just saying to you before, I'm having a truthful conversation with a friend this morning, and delivering your truth, regardless of what that is, in a really good way, and communicating that effectively. You know, requires a skill, but it's also where there's a lot of love that can come from that space. You know, if you're going to argue with someone, it doesn't really get anywhere. But if you can really learn how to share your feelings and your awkwardness, you're not living in your own bullshit, shall we say. It's
Mm.
kind of, you're just owning what it is you really feel, and you're willing to be yourself. And when you can do that, trust comes from that space, because you're always going to deliver what it is you feel. You might be wrong, but there's a space for opportunity and growth. And I think that that's what we need right now.
Do you think that's the sort of the key to moving on and sort of building back after COVID, especially tackling mental health issues,
For,
is
for sure.
breaking down those walls and
Yeah, I think COVID was obviously quite a bad thing to happen to a lot of people, but it was also a great thing in the fact that it gave people an opportunity to reflect. It gave people an opportunity to really look at where they are in their lives. So, I mean, most of my friends who were in jobs have now changed, and they've either started their own businesses or they've gone in their own other directions that they always wanted to go in. It really, I've been calling it, the great rug. It's like when everyone sweeps everything under the carpet and they ignore it. It was like the rug had a mind of its own this year and just flashed up and released everyone's traumas and dramas. And you can't deny what work you've had to go through this year. Everybody on some level has had to realign, and I think that's a powerful place to be. So for me personally, having, starting next year, in a very fun and friendly environment, but dealing with those awkwardness, that awkwardness around whatever's come up this year, is really going to help us live in some level of truth, if not full truth, moving forward, because that's the only place that we really, like we were just saying, you can't trust the governments these days. All of our pillars of trust and truth in the community have kind of flopped,
yeah.
and the trust needs to be established with yourself, but that means that you have to be honest. So if your friend makes you feel uncomfortable, or if your partner is making you feel a certain way, or you feel a certain way because of something that they're doing, sharing that and becoming intimate and connecting is beautiful. It deepens your relationships.
Yeah, I think it's also really important to stress how much of a focus we need to put on mental health, especially at the moment.
Mm.
Things have been so grim for a really long time this year for a lot of people, and it's, I think, for many people, especially people who maybe are sort of more, working class people, people that have had to focus more on their work, more on their
Yeah,
jobs, people who have lost their jobs and are struggling to manage. It can be very easy to just forget about your mental well-being and your mental health and push everything to the side, and
totally.
stressing how important it is to have some time to try and think and reflect and focus
Hmm.
on your own wellness.
Yeah, Wellness is a
really
big,
important.
big industry these days. It's absolutely huge. It's only getting bigger. And it's because we haven't put ourselves first. We've gone into work with this super version of ourselves that we think we are. And then we get into work and most things, most people walk in and they lie as soon as they walk in the door if they're a little bit late. If they're, it's like, oh, why were you late? Oh, traffic. Nothing to do with the fact that you were up all night or that you just don't like your job or you don't really want to get there. We live in this world of lies that we web for ourselves that we don't even realize them when we're lying. And that's one of the big things about this year in wellness is that to be well you have to do things well, and if there's any areas that you've flopped in your life and you're not doing well, that will be highlighted. And it's definitely going to be a first in the workspace next year. It's very hard to avoid any wellness stuff because everyone feels like they have a mental health problem.
What was it that initially got you interested in sort of personal responsibility, coaching and wellness, and what was it that sparked your interest in that area?
My own personal life, the difficulties around my own personal life. It wasn't until I really realized I needed to grow the hell up that I was a professional party girl, shall we say, professional raver. And I was living this champagne lifestyle, lemonade money, didn't really have everything I wanted, but was getting in all the best places. If it was like this Instagram life in a sense of, not that I don't have any social media now. And even when I had it, I wasn't that bad on it, but I was living this life that I thought was okay. But really, when you look at it, what did I have? Where was I at? And I really had to break it down and realize, there's a day where it was just like, oh, I haven't actually grown up. I'm not adulting. The 101, the basics I don't have. And even if you've got the basics, like you've got the house, you've got the car, you've got the mortgage, you might have the family, I guarantee there's still areas in your life that you haven't grown up in. And that for me was a big thing. And I thought I really need to work on that. So by doing it myself, I attracted a lot of other sort of people in that same that same arena. And I've been on the spiritual path for over 10 years now. And so I have a lot of friends that were waking up, should we say, after me, who were coming to me, asking me questions. And because I've gone through the hell of it on my own and I had to figure it out pretty much on my own, it helped me to help other people. So that kind of naturally I led in. And I think most of my friends are like, of course, this is the area you were going to work in. I didn't really see it at the time. I was still trying to DJ and other things. And I do have the radio station, but I've made that about wellness too. It's, being the best version of yourself you can be. Not easy.
How much do you think, sorry, Brett, how much do you think it has to be a personal journey? Sort of you something that I think I've noticed in my own life is a lot of the things that maybe you don't see as being things that hold you back, other people might see them, but it really has to be something that you see yourself and that you find a way to deal with yourself. And that can be often quite frustrating for others around you. I don't know if that's something that you've experienced where you see something that somebody's doing and you try and tell them to sort of steer them away, but it has to be a sort of personal self-discovery, self-journey.
It is a self-discovery. You can learn by other people's mistakes. That's a really good way to learn if you're willing to. A lot of people don't. We have to make our own mistakes sometimes. But, even to the point of me with my friend this morning having to have a truthful conversation, before I have that conversation with them, I need to go to myself and say, what behavior have they displayed within me? Where is that within me? What is that happened? Where in my life am I not showing up, or am I not doing this? Or is it just because, maybe I'm triggered about something else that I haven't expressed? You really have to do a lot of work before you even take it to someone else. And a lot of people don't at the moment. They try and tell people what to do without the self-reflection. And the self-reflection is, it's 100% of everything is yourself. Like, you have to do it yourself. You have to look at yourself. Even if someone, gets really angry at you, look at yourself and say, why are they angry with me? Can I really come out of that situation and say, hold on a minute, what did I do to get me here? Because you got yourself there, regardless of the situation. You had a role to play. It's not easy to own that role. But once you do, you can be clear on what's yours and what's theirs and what you've co-created together, which might be a really awkward situation, but that's where you can solve it, is because you've looked at it thoroughly.
Yeah, I don't know if you're aware of Jocko Willink, who's sort of become a self-help. He is a former he was in the US Special Forces. He was a Navy SEAL, and he's kind of become, since he's come out of the forces, he's got his own podcast, and he's become one of these sort of self-help role models for many people. And one of the things that he talks about is extreme personal responsibility. So
that's exactly it.
Yeah, in all aspects of your life, you're taking responsibility for an ownership for what goes on. Not passing the buck to other people, not looking at other people and saying, what are they doing that's influencing my life and my feelings and my decisions? What am I doing to take ownership of my life and make sure that I'm making the best decisions for myself?
It's not easy owning. You've got to own your emotions. You'll be like, oh yeah, I can do that. But then when it comes down to it, you've got to admit to being wrong. You've got to be willing to let go. You've got to be okay with change. You've got to admit to not being as amazing as you might have thought you were. You've got to admit to being vulnerable. That's just it. Just the basics. I mean, there's loads more than that. But if you can be humble enough to see, because I think a lot of people see vulnerability as a weakness, and it's actually a major strength, because if you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, you can learn. Otherwise, you're teaching yourself from a space of limited understanding, and there's no growth from that space. But he sounds like a great guy. I'd love to know more about him.
Do you think society is sort of really behind in that respect, in terms of vulnerability and encouraging it?
I think we're getting there because more people are talking about it. We're not in the cave stage the way we used to be, caveman era. I believe there's kind of two parts to it. There's a lot of people willing to, that have been forced, I guess, through COVID and everything, that are forced to wake up and look at things, which is always a painful way. It's easy if you look at it voluntarily. But there's kind of two parts. It's cool to wake up and look at all of this stuff. And then there's another part where it's also, there's an agenda. So there's like an identity in everything now as being woke. And I just did a video on it recently, and it's, being woke means you are awake. It basically means that you are no longer asleep. So you are aware that other things on the planet are not quite what they seem. It means that you are interested in spirituality, looking at alternative histories, looking at the way things are on the planet, which all requires an amount of fascination and change and, willingness to look at. But it can get really exciting in those realms where we look at that. We can go down a conspiracy rabbit hole, or we can go and look at what's happening to the pyramids and see if they were made by aliens. And there's all of that stuff. And it's really exciting because they didn't teach us that shit at school. They should have done, because otherwise I'd have been there every day. But there's that side where it gets fascinating. But there's the other side of it where there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And if you're not willing to do the work and you only want to stay in the fantasy land, that can also become addictive, and you can also be really irritable for other people. So although a lot of people will say that they've woken up and they will say that they're doing the work, you have to guess, you'll see the ones that are doing the work because you'll feel it and they'll be doing it. They won't be talking about it really. And that's a real sign of change. But it is kind of cool to wake up now. It is kind of cool to look at yourself and do personal responsibility, because who doesn't want a better life? Who doesn't want to have a better life and wake up being happy? Everybody does, as far as I'm aware. But it's how much you're willing to, because a sacrifice needs to be made. In order for something good to come, something bad has to go. But you might have an attachment to the bad thing. You might not want to let that partner go, or you might not want to let that job go, or that situation, or that argument and that rage and that anger that you've held on to for months or for years. That's got to go in order to create space for the new. And that's, society is in this thing right now, is not wanting to let go, but needing to.
Yeah. Well, you sort of touched on a bit on the sort of education, the sort of self-education side, and I was looking at your personal YouTube channel and saw that you'd made some videos on this, and looking at alternative individuals, alternative intellectuals, if you will, and looking at different sort of theories. How important is that in your own personal journey, and how much would you say to other people that that's something that people need
that's a really good question. So one of the videos that I did recently was actually about David Icke, which a lot of people have a big problem with at the moment on the planet. Now, I don't know everything. I'm not arrogant enough to pretend that I think I do. I don't believe everything that's out there. I also don't, just skim over the headlines. I very much look into what I'm looking at, and I go right deep into it. And if something feels true within myself, because I don't have any distractions, I'm not drinking or drugs, I don't have any things that may unstable my, ability to make a decision. If I feel something to be true, I'll follow that and I'll keep looking into that. So regardless of where the information comes from, it's going through my filter. It's going through my own personal understanding. And I'm making a judgment call on it. I'm not being led. I'm not a sheep. No one's changing my brain. And, I've got my own ability to think, as has everyone. What a lot of people do out there is they rely on what they think they know, because they are scared of being challenged, or they may have created an identity around what they think they know. And if somebody comes to challenge that, and it could challenge everything that they think they know, then, how willing are they to let go of that? It might be, some people pay for their education. A lot of people do. So if you've paid for your education, then you find out that most of it's flawed, which is happening right now with a lot of university content and a lot of, courses that people are doing. And they're like, oh, I've spent all this money and I can't actually get a job, and it doesn't actually fit the environment. You've got to let go, and you've got to be humble enough to go, wow, I've got to let go of everything I think I know and start again. And that is something not everybody's willing to do. But for me, I'm not fixed on anything. I paid for my education. I haven't gone to university. I am very free thinking, I've got a free open mind, but it's not in this case where my brains are going to fall out. It's just that I'm willing to look at places of information where other people will go, no, conspiracy theorists not interested, or no, pseudoscience, or no, that doesn't make sense. What we think we know can always change, and we can always be challenged. And it's the ability to take on information and just take it on, and then let it go when you need to let it go. If something better comes along, move on to that. But that's you're talking, it's very hard for people to do that. But I would say it's the most important thing, because somebody might tell you something amazing about chakras and auras and how beautiful and everything is, and they'll add in the glitter and the fairy stories and the unicorns. I want to know all of that stuff's true. I want to believe all of that stuff's true, because it's magical and it makes me feel better and it's great. I've never seen physically with my own eyes a chakra, but I've done work around my chakras that have worked. I've never seen a unicorn, but I want to believe that there is one. If we can have rhinos with horns, we can have horses with horns. It's like, these things out there, I don't mind whether they're there or not. I just use the information that I need as and when I need it, and nothing's closed or limited. So I would say it's 100% important to be able to do that.
I think something that we always preach is trying to, especially when it comes to reading, and we're obviously predominantly based around politics and social issues anyway, so this is something that we talk about a lot, is reading widely and with skepticism. So, when you're reading an article, you want to be looking at who's written that article. Have they done research on this area before? How credible are the sources in the research that they're using? And read everything with an element of skepticism. I do think that there are, some people in some places are more reputable than others, and they should be maybe taken into account when you're doing sort of base research more than others. But that doesn't mean that you push other people to the sidelines, and that doesn't mean that people shouldn't read David Icke, for example. And I would say take a pinch of salt with everything that you read of his, because the history of his reading, I don't know how deep you've dived into the David Icke rabbit hole, but so there's a lot of stuff that I think is
sounds crazy. Sounds absolutely batshit crazy.
People should be careful with taking that to be gospel, because I think when you but read it and take it in and learn about it, and learn about different people and different theories, because you might just find something that surprises you.
Well, this is the thing. It's people would call him, he's been known in the world largely by media and by politicians as well, as a crazy conspiracy theorist. Now, if I said you were a crazy human being, people would think you were a crazy human being, because I put the word crazy at the beginning. And that word is quite detrimental, and it's used within the media in many ways. A lot of these words are placed in the media to make you think a certain thing about someone before you even read their content. So if you go to something and you've already got a pre-idea, kind of thought of what this person is or who he is, or you've been manipulated in some way, that limits your capability of taking on independent information. That limits your judgment. That limits on how you read and what you determine from reading that. And that is a problem. And it's because right now we can't trust our media, and we can't trust our political establishments to give us a truthful opinion, because they argue between each other, and they're designed to slag you off, to slag each other off and cause division. So for me, I would say, yes, take everything with a pinch of salt from everywhere. There are no solid established companies out there that you can say everything is absolute truthful, because there's someone within that company at some point that will do something that wouldn't align with what you do. No one is 100%, but no one is 100% wrong either. And people like David Icke, not everything he talks about I would like to believe is true. Like, I don't want to believe the Queen's a lizard. I'm not really, it's not really something I want to to take in and be like, oh my God, because if she is, then my whole world's gone. But however, if she is, then okay, I'm okay with knowing about that, and I'm okay at looking at it, because I'm not gonna, I'm willing to do that. But I don't also, you can't, I mean, his latest book, it's called The Answer. It's like this big, it's massive. You can't discredit an entire book and life's work from someone and say it's all rubbish, because he has proof, and he has scientific proof, and he has facts many times over. So someone like that is it's very hard to put someone like him on a pedestal, and praise everything he says, but it's also very hard to knock him off that and say, well, everything you say is rubbish. He's a very good character for that, because it's difficult.
Yeah, one thing that you can't say about David Icke is that you're ever going to be able to shut him up. I mean, he's been slandered probably as much as anybody in history, and he's continued to put work out. And I haven't read any of his new stuff really. The last thing that I saw of his was an interview that somebody did. I think
London Real?
I think it was Vice.
Okay, yeah. See, they also manipulate their media, so it's really bad.
It's funny that you should mention London Real, because we're actually trying really hard to get Brian Rose onto the podcast, because he's running for London Mayor.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think that, everybody participating in democracy is great, but there are sort of things that we want to know more about in his campaign. He's got some views on lockdown that don't necessarily chime with Brett's and my own.
Yeah.
But then there's other areas of his campaign that I think are really great. So some of his environmental stuff, he wants to push fitness to the forefront.
Yeah.
He wants to, ensure that there's safety and security in people's jobs, that sort of stuff. Far more, some of his recovery stuff is really great. Health, have a health focused campaign.
Yeah, stick to what you're good at kind of stuff. He's got a track record in those areas, hasn't he? And he's done well for those areas.
Yeah. So he's just a really interesting guy. But again, another outlet that has done very well off of providing a space for people who have been pushed to the sidelines. And it's very important that we don't do that. It's important that the principles of free speech are the ones that we have, that are our foundations, and that we listen to everybody, and we listen to what they have to say, and then we take them on their merits. We don't look at individuals necessarily and criticize and push to the side individuals. It's very important that we listen to what people have to say, and then judge our views based on that.
Power of free speech, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. We didn't really cover so you've also got a workshop, I don't know if you're doing it at the moment, called Unfuck Your Life, right?
Unfuck Your Life, yes, that is correct. I held off a little bit just because I was organising stuff with the radio, but they will be coming back in January, I believe. I think it's January. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfuck Your Life was actually named by someone else.
Right.
I helped him unfuck his life, and that was his testimonial.
Yes.
And he's like, oh my God, you need to do this for everyone. And I thought, I could do that for as many people as want to join. And it's basically a day where, like when you say to yourself, oh, I'm going to do that one day, and you never do it. Well, this is that one day. Everything you think that you wanted to do, or that you've had an idea of doing, we hold you to account. So I literally get you to brain dump every single thing that you said you were going to do, want to do, should do, need to do, have to do, whatever it is, onto a particular kind of to-do list that I've created, that it works in separate columns. And we look at your social life, your love life, your finance life. We look at your work life. We look at your fitness. Every area has a column. And then on that, we can get rid of the ones that no longer needed, that were just ideas that it's not really going to fruition, that you're not really in alignment with. You can get rid of things that you can pass on to other people, or you can look at, when you do it like that, you can look at all the tasks that you have that might be, for example, everybody in the world has forgotten a password at some point. So you might be like, oh, I haven't got my password for that, and then I need to get into my bank, and then I haven't got my banking card, and then so sometimes there's tasks that are so simple, but they're attached to 5 other things that you haven't yet done, and you're like this web of mess that you're just kind of ignoring. And so we do that. We kind of go through everyone's stuff. We get them to start logging their passwords. We clear all of their email boxes regardless of how many emails you have. I've had people saying, you can't clear all mine, and I'm like, I've had people with 150,000 emails in an email account.
I thought my inbox was bad.
Yeah, just sat there. So there's a couple of tools you can use to clear your inboxes and kind of get organized. And then we go through taking all your notifications off your phone, tidying up your life digitally and like on an admin basis, but you're doing it in a group of people. So it's fun. It was much better when it was face to face.
Yeah, of course.
Online, it can be done online, but it's much better, as I say, face to face. And that's where you can, when people say, hey, I want to save the world, or hey, I want to start a political party, or hey, I want to do this, and you're like, hey, how many WhatsApps have you avoided this week? Or hey, how many emails have you not responded to yet this week? We can't make global change unless we've made personal change, ever. We think we can, and we have this illusion that we can save the planet, or we can get everyone to be vegan this week. It's like this grand idea. When you are avoiding your own life, good luck with the world. It's, we need people that are solid, that are consistent, that are truthful, that are owning their shit, that can get their stuff done. That's what we need. And, those people are rare, very rare. And I know that because whenever somebody knows what my Unfuck Your Life is about, they're like, oh my God, I need you. I need to do that in my life. Everybody has the same response. People who are taking personal responsibility are rare. And we need an army of those people first. Maybe we can have your friend that you were talking about, the other dude, the personal responsibility guy. Yeah. Maybe he leads the army.
Yeah,
I can do the admin stuff and all the fluffy stuff, and he can lead the army.
You inject an hour and a half of Jocko into your veins, and it will power you through like the next.
I need
week.
to see what this guy looks like. Jocko.
He's huge. He's like a massive army.
How are we spelling it? Jocko. Jocko.
Jocko.
Jocko. Oh, okay, yeah.
Willink. Willink. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Jocko.
Yeah,
Willink.
Louise. Yeah,
so
he's huge.
Inject some Jocko into your veins, and that'll power you up. And it's brilliant. He's brilliant. But I completely agree, and especially with the sentiments about getting your own eggs in order before you go and try and change the world is really, really important. But not to dissuade people from also trying to make the world a better place in other areas. Also, I think you can attack both at the same time, and it's really really important that there are anomalies out there. Sometimes we see people who have got the craziest personal lives in the world, but they go on and do amazing things.
Exactly.
And sometimes we see people who have got the most tidy and ordered personal lives in the world, but aren't interested in going out and changing the world for the better.
Yeah, not everybody needs to change the world. Some people just needs to learn how to live in it. Which is great.
We've been trying to organise ourselves quite a bit recently, and doing various sort of steps to make sure that we're not procrastinating things and all that.
How's that going?
I mean, it's going better than it was so far. You did a course, didn't you, Jack?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, and a similar kind of thing. It was based on the GTD, a book called GTD, Get Things Done.
Yes, I've seen that. So you did his course.
Yeah, well, it was a course that the Prince's Trust run based on those principles.
Right,
and it's lots of similar stuff, looking at everything in your life that's on top of you, sorting it out, writing it all down, figuring out what's important, what you need to spend time on, what's important but you don't need to spend much time on. The stuff
it's a good way of like alienating and excluding everything, isn't it?
Yeah, and the amount of stuff that you have that you spend time on and you're putting time into, and when you write it down, you realize that you don't really need to be spending time on that stuff. It's enormous, and how much more clarity you have when you've written that down and you've gone, right, I don't need to focus on that. I don't need to spend time on that.
It's amazing how much we think we can get done as well in our minds. We're like, oh my God, I want to do this and that and this and that. And then this is going to be great. And I've got time for that. And you're like, really? You're like, you haven't got out of bed yet. Our minds are so expansive, but our lives are so limited sometimes.
The biggest thing for me, I don't know if I've got one of these. There we go. This is what I use to plan my day. And that's been the biggest thing for me. It's got like my appointments, my priority tasks, optional extras, chores.
Oh, you're good.
That has been the biggest thing for me. I've been doing that for probably about a month now.
Yeah.
I've been so much more organized and so much more productive since I started to do that. And it's just 10-15 minutes every day. And then
you're organized, done for the day.
Looking at what you're going to do the next day before you shut everything down, having a bit of a review of how the day went. Yeah, and that's been absolutely massive for me. And writing stuff down, it's incredible how powerful that is.
Makes a big difference. Where's yours, Brett?
I don't actually have one yet. I was Jack sent me all these resources. I mean, I should be getting on it, really. I should write out a similar list, but I do feel like I've done a better job of organising myself. I do write lists down, and they're not as organised as Jack's, I don't think, but I'm sort of prioritising a bit more. And
Jack, you and I will get on, my love. You can join us.
I would recommend it for everybody, and just the first, it's like often people say the first part of moving forward is accepting that you've got a problem. And it's funny that you mentioned the inbox thing, because I think nowhere near 150,000, but I think I had like 7,000 unread emails in my inbox. I just spent a morning deleting all of those, which felt amazing. But even just doing stuff like that helps you sort of get your mind in the right place to say, right, okay, I'm going to get things organized now.
Being organized is such a gift. It's an incredible gift, and it's just something that you can really give to yourself. It takes you one morning or whatever it is. You can use some of these apps that are out there that help you unroll and unsubscribe from everything. You come away thinking that you're Superwoman, and all you've done is cleaned your email box, and it gives you such a sense of self-achievement that it's beautiful. But it doesn't happen very often when we go through this kind of like doubt. We get bowled over thinking that everything's going to run on top of us. Just clean your email box. Makes you feel great. It's like having a spring clean, but it's very simple, but it's also very scary for people, because then they're like, oh my God, what's going to be next? What have I got to do next? And then, that's when the fear comes, because behind all of the stuff that we're creating and all the bullshit we're living in are the real problems, which most people avoid.
Yeah, and some people are really naturally organized, and like my sister's one of those people who she's in year 13 at the moment. She's done her mocks, and she is the hardest working, most naturally organized person I know, and I'm the complete opposite. So if you're somebody like me who's really shit at organizing yourself and organizing your life, you do need to put a little bit more of an emphasis and a focus on it.
You do, but obviously you're the big brother, and you've got your day list, right? You've got your I can do this every day list. So you're winning. It's Brett that needs to catch up. Come on, Brett.
Come on, Brett.
I'm going to set you a challenge.
I just wanted to point out
Brett.
that my emails are perfectly well organized. I never don't read an email. So
have you got boxes in there, Brett? Have you got like organized boxes and files of where everything goes? Is that the kind of
my email
you are? Yeah. Have you kind of like organized them by folder, or used everything in archive?
No, I sort of just look at them every day, and then I always unsubscribe from the ones I don't annoy me, because I get notifications and that annoys me. So I just end up unsubscribing there and then.
Isn't it funny how these emails, when they come through, they can annoy you? And you're like, God, am I getting annoyed by an email of a person I don't know? But really, it's like,
And that you subscribe to as well. I always do that. I get an email and I'm like, when the hell did I subscribe to that thing? Why would I ever have put my email in that?
It is crazy. You do it and you're like, why did I do that? And now I did one the other day for a speaking academy, and they literally send me about, what is it? I've got like 11 emails last week from them. I'm like, there's only 7 days in the week. Like, why are you still emailing me every single day? And more than every day, but it's their strategy, their marketing strategy to get you on board. And I'm like, that's intrusive. That's intrusive.
Yeah. What would be your biggest tips, especially during COVID at the moment? And we're starting to maybe come out the other side. You've mentioned some of the organizational stuff, but what other sort of key fundamentals would you say to people to focus on?
So this is a good one. This is the one I love. So the way I look at it is that I think the biggest thing you can do to yourself is reduce the amount of opportunities that people can come and prod you in a day. And what I mean by that is you've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. You've got your WhatsApps, your emails, maybe various email boxes. You've got your phone calls, then you've got your family, you've got your friends, you've got your partner. You've got all these opportunities where someone can just go, hey, and get you out of your day. And what I mean by that is literally a notification. Get rid of these notifications. Your brain is already hardwired to be able to go to those apps all the time, because that's what you do. And that's what it's done over the last few years. So if your brain is already going there, you don't need to be constantly reminded that you've got notifications. So that's one thing, is take them off. But other than that, I'm not on social media, as you know. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on any of them. The only thing I have is a LinkedIn push. I use it a bit like a CV, and I don't want to have any social media. It's a distraction. So I'm using everything in Telegram. So I'm even pushing all of my WhatsApp contacts into Telegram. And if they're not on Telegram, then that's fine. We don't need to speak unless they want to call me. So I'm even getting rid of WhatsApp very soon. And I'm just taking it down to one portal of opportunity where people, if I don't want to go in there, I don't have to go in there. But if I do, it's where everyone is. It's not that I'm distracted in all these different directions, because that's not life. That's not, before we had the internet, you could call someone on the house phone, and if they weren't there, tough shit.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah. It's like, if you weren't at home, you weren't at home. But now we're so readily available, and we don't know what someone's bringing to us. Yeah. So imagine if you've got all your friends that are going through a hell time all on the same day, and they just all want to call you because you seem to have it together. You've got that on your day now, instead of actually just being you.
Yeah. And it's breaking through the fear of missing out on stuff, and it's looking at that email or that text and going, is that really, really crucial that I see that right now?
Yeah. And there's no FOMO this year because no one's missing out on anything.
Yeah, that's true. But again, one of the things that came up in the workshops that I did was turning off your notifications. And something that I've done, it is amazing how little how less frequently you look at your phone when it's dinging off in the corner, and you can just focus on getting something done. It's really massive. And those small, you think that making those small little changes can have a much bigger impact than doing really drastic things, and they're a lot more sustainable as well.
You can get hours back of your life as well. Yeah. Like there's so much time. I remember when I got the app, what was it? When I had Instagram or something. Was it Instagram? No. It was the app for checking how long you've been on YouTube. Oh my God. I've been on YouTube for 24 hours in 1 week.
Wow.
That's a lot. That's a whole day. And I'm just like, because it was 12 hours and I was just like, that's a lot. Then I realized I have 2 YouTube accounts, because I have one for my business, one for my personal, on different devices. So then I thought, if I add them together and see 12 hours on each, and I'm just like, I've spent an entire day, and I'm not just watching conspiracies, in case anybody says anything, but I'm down rabbit holes, but I'm also looking at like quantum science. I'm looking at other stuff for one of my other projects that I work on. So I watch the most random videos of like magnetics and, like looking at like agriculture and gardening and all that kind of stuff. And I'm learning all of this stuff. So it's fascinating, because I wasn't interested at school, but when it takes a day of your week and you're stuck on YouTube down a rabbit hole, that needs attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Healthy.
Sure. Well, if you've got an iPhone, it tells you now you can turn notifications for screen time on, and it pops up and then shames you into how often you've been using your phone.
Shame can be good sometimes. Can be definitely, but I don't have an iPhone. I left the iPhone club, and I got myself. Yeah, I know, right? It's so difficult. And then I got myself an Android, which is okay.
The superior operating system.
The superior. Yeah, have you got an Android as well?
I do, yeah.
We'll that's why everybody that's got on, you're like, yes, superior operating system. Yeah, it's just I didn't want to feel like everything was on a Mac or an iPad or and essentially it's you're stuck there, and I just don't like feeling stuck. I was like, no, I need to break away somehow, so I'm going to have a different phone. But yeah, here we are with my Android club.
Nice. So is there anything that you've got coming up? I know you mentioned some projects starting in January, but any plans coming up that you want to tell people about?
So if anybody does want to reach out and connect, please do so. You can go to where'snatat.com, and that is my personal website, so you can ask me any questions, or I do coaching and so on. But also the main thing is the mental health thing. So in January, as of January the 4th, IAMSOUNDAcademy.com, you will be able to go there and join us every single evening from 7 in the evening. We've got loads of DJs on. We've got lots of big different artists on, talking about different stuff, different companies joining us, all in the aim of mental health and basically helping us get through what could be the darkest month we've ever had, because it's always shit after Christmas, and then this one's like, oh my God. So we need to start that next year in a different way. So if you want to own your problems and you want to look at them and you want to work through them with everyone else and have fun at the same time with a bit of dance music, join us.
Yeah, we saw the schedule and it did seem like the topic seemed really interesting. So
you got some great DJs as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so
they're all my contacts, thank goodness, because they're just they're gonna make it look even better. For sure. I can add all the colours and the raw topics, but having the DJs talking about that stuff as well is really important.
Yeah, and those voices are always really, really powerful. So thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
I've loved it, guys. Thank you so much. And Brett, your challenge is to get yourself the daily sheet.
Yes, I will work. I'm working towards it.
We'll have to do this again at some point.
Boys, I would love to come back and talk about anything. I'm so happy to do so. It's been wonderful.
I can give you an update of how organised I've become since.
Challenge set. There you
we
go. Thank you very much. And Jack, keep him on his toes with that.
I will.
Right. In the absence. All right, my guys. See you later.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.